The Subcommittee on Government Operations and the Federal Workforce will come to order. I want to thank each of you for being here. It's now 2 o'clock on March the 9th, and with agreement, we are, the minority and the majority, we are delighted to have the hearing today, which we're going to make sure that we get closer to working for a more efficient government on behalf of the taxpayer. Without objection, the chair may declare a recess at any time. I recognize myself for the purpose of making an opening statement. I would like to welcome each of you to the first hearing of the newly configured Government Operations and Federal Workforce Subcommittee. I would like to offer a welcome to the ranking member of the committee, my friend Mr. Mfume. Mr. Mfume, I look forward to working with you, and as we have agreed, even though this is all brand new, we're going to work together, but you should expect me to approach you about the items that I think are important, and I want to hear from you about those items which you believe we should, with joint agreement, undertake together. Today, we will continue the work of this committee that began last month to examine what is called waste, fraud, and abuse in the COVID relief programs. Already, the committee's work has made an impact in the form of the Biden administration's long overdue anti-fraud plan, which was formally released in the wake of the full committee hearing last month. We have yet to see the details of the plan, but this administration has made certain that they will brief us on this issue because it's important to them, it's important to us, and it's important to the American people. So here we are, trying to work together, calling for bipartisan legislation, but we must do this, and it really sits right now on the feet of the administration to make sure we all work together. We're not going to blame anyone. We want to run to fix, not fight. But hearing the experts last month, this committee heard that federal and state agencies were not prepared for this massive undertaking, which included a lot of money, of funds, and created an unprecedented demand and accelerated timeframes to deal with a pandemic. But the reality is fraud and improper payments in federal programs have been growing, and these are not new problems. They are problems that must be addressed, and I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to find out we may be in the same circumstance again. So it's up to all of us to work together to find better answers. Another reality is that the amount of fraud and improper payments in the COVID relief program is so large that it is larger than the GDP of many other countries. So we need to look past the past and determine the underlying problems, but we need to focus on the present. What is being done? In the future, what needs to be done? We need to determine what we need to do in terms of additional legislation. If it's required, we want to approach it as best we can together. And the statute of limitations on fraud cases likely to be extended. We'll ask your opinion on that. As our work continues, we need to examine why existing federal capacities and capabilities like the Treasury's do not pay system apparently did not serve as the most fail-safe system during the pandemic. We need to examine efforts to protect against identity theft, a main factor in COVID fraud. This will lead us to GSA's login.gov, intended to be a one-stop shop to verify the identity of those seeking federal benefits. We need to hear from the private sector, both in terms of what technologies exist to protect against fraud, but also to make sure that we're bringing to bear those things which allow government quickly and ably to prepare itself for crisis. So there's a lot that needs to be done. As part of this, adopting a recurrent oversight model for the subcommittee to track agency progress, I want to thank today's witnesses. Mr. Turner, thank you for taking time to be with us today. The Inspector General from the Department of Labor, Mr. Delmar, Acting Inspector General at the Department of Treasury, and Mr. Shoemaker, Deputy Inspector General at the SBA, Small Business Administration. So, Mr. Shoemaker, I understand you got this promotion 6 months ago, so congratulations. We're delighted that you're here. I also understand that you're appearing in place of Mr. Ware, the Inspector General, since he is at a memorial service for his grandmother. I hope that you would convey to him that your presence today is appreciated and that we wish him the best in this time of need for his family matters. With that, I would now like to recognize the ranking member, my friend Mr. Nfume, for any opening statement that he would choose to make. The gentleman is now recognized for the purpose of making an opening statement.
Well, thank you very, very much, Mr. Chair. I want to thank you for convening this meeting. I agree with what you said earlier, that our purpose here is to find out what went wrong and how to make sure it doesn't go wrong again. And I want to add my thanks again to the three of you, as the chairman just mentioned, individually and collectively, for what you do. And I know I keep saying it's a hard job, but it's a hard job because when it's done right, it really requires a great deal of going beyond the job description and working to find ways to make us better as a nation. So thank you again, Chairman Sessions. I'm looking forward to working with you. This is our inaugural meeting of this committee that has been established in the 118th Congress, and I'm hoping that we can move forward in many ways on bipartisan issues to come up with solutions, because at the end of the day, that's why we were all set here. Today, the Oversight Subcommittee on Government Operations and the Federal Workforce convenes, as I just said, its first hearing of the 118th Congress. As ranking member of the subcommittee and as a member who represents a large population of federal workers, I look forward to supporting our nation's hardworking civil servants, and the American people, in my opinion, deserve a federal government that delivers responsible, credible, and effective policies and programs. Though we may differ sometimes in terms of our strategies and our programs, I believe that the Chair and I are seriously committed to serving the constituencies to the best of our abilities. And Chairman Sessions, again, I'm looking forward to the many days and weeks ahead as we try to do that together. Today we hold the second hearing of this Congress focused on the subject of evaluating improper payments and fraud in pandemic programs. I want to remind my fellow members that millions of Americans, regardless of their political affiliation or their geography, felt the effects of the global pandemic when individuals and families and communities desperately needed a lifeline. Congress acted swiftly to provide expanded unemployment benefits to workers. We directed administrative funding to states that were struggling to process skyrocketing unemployment insurance claims. And these expanded benefits over time helped millions of Americans to make ends meet. And my office alone worked with hundreds of constituents throughout the greater Baltimore area to ensure that they received these crucial dollars. These real dollars that were meant for real people. The pandemic triggered, as we all know, economic uncertainty, particularly the disastrous things that have happened to our small business community, so much so that by April 2020, an estimated 45% of those businesses across the country, unfortunately, were forced to shut their doors. Thankfully, Congress's Paycheck Protection Program authorized the Small Business Administration to distribute a record $800 billion to help effective businesses across the country continue to pay their employees. Unfortunately, what we've seen previously failed to implement the safeguards that we in the Congress explicitly designed by statute, which exacerbated, in my opinion, the pandemic fraud. On the other hand, Congress and the Biden administration took decisive action to identify improper payments and to combat fraud. For example, congressional Democrats passed the American Rescue Plan, which included additional funding for federal offices and offices of inspectors general to be able to do what all of you are doing, that is to combat fraud. We established the COVID-19 Fraud Enforcement Task Force, as you're aware. And in the previous Congress, while I served as Vice Chair of the Small Business Committee, we held substantial hearings on COVID-19 pandemic relief programs. We participated in numerous bipartisan briefings with the SBA. I co-sponsored and we all moved to pass H.R. 7352, the PPP and Bank Fraud Enforcement Harmonization Act of 2022, which again was a bipartisan bill to extend the statute of limitations and to be able to go after the bad guys that continued to commit PPP fraud. These are real solutions that help the agencies to crack down on fraud and to make sure that our federal dollars were being used and being sent to where they were intended to go. In March of 2020, the Subcommittee on Government Operations, led by my friend Mr. Connolly of Virginia, held a hearing to explore how the federal government should in fact use data sharing, proactive analytics and customer experience to research and to prevent improper payments and fraud before they occur. Throughout the pandemic, many of us have fought hard. On behalf of Americans all over the country, I would remind everyone that it was under Chairman Jim Clyburn's leadership that the subcommittee on the coronavirus crisis held 7 hearings focused on combating fraud in relief programs and recovered millions, at least $109 million, and they are still recovering money that was improperly used and payments that went out improperly. Among the many accomplishments, that committee helped us to be able to do what we ought to do when things go awry, and that is to try to find a way to save taxpayers' dollars before they continue to become victims of fraud. And I'd like to enter, Mr. Chairman, into the record the final report of that subcommittee.
Without objection, they'll be entered in the record.
Thank you, sir, which details the major successes of that democratic effort to prevent fraudsters from exploiting weaknesses in the programs. I'd like to just close by saying I want to really be clear. Fraudsters must be identified, prosecuted, and sent to jail. This is theft, grand theft, with a great deal of premeditation. And to be able to find a way to recover funds and to protect the innocent, I think, is the very least we can do. And the innocence in this instant is the United States of America, which responded as it should to the great need that had come about as a result of the pandemic. So I look forward to today's hearing. Gentlemen, I would just say this to you also, aside from the fact that I think you have a very hard job. We are looking to you to find out what you found out and to tell us how we can legislatively and in a bipartisan manner put in place the things that we need based on your investigations to stop a lot of what is still going on, but more importantly, to prevent the things that are incubating now that you have identified and we know are huge problems. So with that, Mr. Chair, I want to thank you again, and I yield back the balance of my time.
I thank the gentleman, the ranking member, my friend, but also for his comments, which we agree on. And so we will shake hands here with an opportunity to begin that way, and we will work on this. I want to thank also the distinguished gentleman, the chairman of the committee, Mr. Comer, for him taking time to be with us today. Also my colleagues that have joined us and my colleagues and your colleagues that are on this side. We'll go through a witness introduction here very quickly. The gentleman, Mr. Larry Turner, serves as Inspector General of the Department of Labor. He leads the organization in detecting and deterring waste, fraud, and abuse in the Department of Labor programs. This includes investigating fraudulent unemployment insurance claims and improper payments that resulted from COVID-19 pandemic programs. Our next witness will be the gentleman Richard Delmar serves as the Acting Inspector General of the Treasury Department. In this role, he conducts oversight of Treasury programs and operations, including the Coronavirus Relief Fund and the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. He also supported the operation of the Pandemic Response Accountability Committees to bring together the IGs affected in all the areas. Lastly, Sheldon Shoemaker is the Deputy Inspector General at the U.S. Small Business Administration Office of Inspector General. He serves as a principal advisor to the IG and assists with conducting oversight of the SBA's programs and operations, including the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Gentlemen, I would ask, pursuant to Committee's Rule 9G, the witnesses would please stand and raise their right hands to be sworn. And the gentleman will affirm at the end if you would choose. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record reflect that all three witnesses, thank you very much, answer the question in the affirmative. And thank you very much. We are now going to begin those opening statements. Mr. Turner, you will be first. Mr. Delmar, you will be second. Mr. Shoemaker, you will be third. The gentleman, Mr. Turner, is recognized.
Good afternoon, Chairman Sessions, Ranking Member Mfume, and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Although the OIG oversees all DOL programs, my testimony focuses on our oversight of the unemployment insurance program. The views expressed here are based on the independent work of the OIG and are not intended to reflect DOL's positions. Mr. Chairman, the OIG remains committed to assisting DOL and Congress in improving the efficiency and integrity of the UI program. Strengthening the program to prevent and detect fraud is key to ensuring that unemployed workers quickly receive needed benefits while safeguarding taxpayer dollars. For many years, the OIG has highlighted significant concerns with DOL and states' ability to deploy UI benefits expeditiously and efficiently while ensuring integrity and adequate oversight. The pandemic compounded these challenges, creating a perfect storm. As the OIG reported, states were not prepared to process the historic volume of claims, resulting in significant delays. Initial reliance on claimant self-certification rendered the PUA program susceptible to fraud, and the unprecedented infusion of federal funds gave fraudsters a high-value target to exploit. That, combined with ease of identity theft and system weaknesses previously identified by the OIG, allowed criminals to defraud the program. DOL recently reported an annual improper payment rate estimate of 21.52% for FY22. When applied to the approximate $888 billion in UI benefits paid during the pandemic, at least $191 billion could have been paid improperly, with a significant portion attributable to fraud. Following the passage of the CARES Act, fraud against the UI program exploded. Since April 1, 2010, the OIG opened more than 198,000 UI investigative matters. This represents 1,000 times increase in the volume of our UI work. The OIG took immediate action to respond to this crisis. After passage of the CARES Act, we issued an advisory report identifying initial areas of concern for DOL and the states. Since then, we released several additional reports. We also hired additional investigators, strengthened our data analytics program, and worked with DOJ to create a national UI fraud task force. We leveraged SIGI and PRAC resources, implemented outreach and education with the states, and collaborated with PRAC, DOJ, and the Secret Service to recover fraudulent funds. We also engaged with international law enforcement partners to pursue transnational organized criminal groups. The OIG efforts resulted in more than 700 search warrants executed and 1,200 individuals charged with UI fraud. These charges resulted in more than 500 convictions, 1,100 months of incarceration, 11,000 months of incarceration, and $905 million of investigative results. We also identified $45.6 billion in potentially fraudulent UI benefits paid to 4 high-risk areas. In response to our recommendations, DOL instituted efforts to improve the UI program. However, several OIG recommendations remain unimplemented regarding OIG's access to UI data, state staffing and IT modernization, guidance and assistance to the states, and controls for improper payments. Mr. Chairman, I want to take a minute to highlight 3 challenges impacting our work. First is data access. For years, the OIG requested access to data to proactively monitor the UI program. Given the magnitude of the issues at the start of the pandemic, we took the unprecedented step of issuing IG subpoenas to all state workforce agencies. The data allowed us to identify billions in potential fraud. However, the subpoena process took months and delayed our ability to detect fraud. Second, the statute of limitations associated with pandemic UI fraud will start to expire in early 2025. UI crimes often include complex schemes and require significant resources and time to investigate. Last year, we recommended that Congress extend the statute of limitations. Third, our work is being impacted by resource limitations. The OIG received $38.5 million to oversee close to $1 trillion in expanded programs. Unfortunately, it will be fully expended by April 2024. Combined with a lower than expected FY23 appropriation, our funding is insufficient to maintain the level of oversight we deployed during the pandemic. However, the President's recent proposal to provide OIG with $100 million would allow us to continue fighting pandemic-related fraud beyond 24. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to testify about our work overseeing the UI program. I want to thank the dedicated OIG employees who continue to work tirelessly in support of our oversight mission. I look forward to answering any questions that you or any members of the committee may have. Thank you.